Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, we warmly welcome Honorable Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe, who are amongst us today. Sir, it's an honor to have you today, this morning. Today, this seminar is dedicated to take a very close look at reconciliation. We are lucky to have Honorable Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe and Honorable Member of Parliament Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe, Governor of the Central Bank Mr. Ajit Niwad Cabral, and Secretary to His Excellency the President, Mr. Lalit Veeratunga, and Colonel James Robinson from United States of America to share their views with us during the day. Extending a very warm welcome once again to Honorable Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe, Secretary to the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Secretary of the Ministry of Defence in Pakistan, General Yasin Malik. I very warmly welcome you on behalf of the Commander of the Army, Lieutenant General Jagat Jayasuriya. The first speaker today is Honorable Mahinda Samarasinghe, who will share his views on reconciliation. Honorable Mahinda Samarasinghe is the Minister of Plantation Industries of the Government of Sri Lanka and Special Envoy of His Excellency the President on Human Rights. Honorable Mahinda Samarasinghe is a graduate of La Trobe University, Melbourne, Australia, where he earned the degree Bachelor of Economics with honours. He has served the country in numerous capacities as First Secretary in High Commission of Sri Lanka, Canberra, Australia, Counselor Permanent Mission of Sri Lanka to the United Nations in Geneva, where he represented the country at the International Labour Organization, World Health Organization, International Telecommunication Union, and World Meteorological Organization. He has also served as President of the Committee for Human Rights of Parliamentarians in Geneva, Member of Advisory Committee to the Human Rights Task Force of Sri Lanka, Executive Member of the Parliamentary Group for the Protection and Promotion of Human Rights, and was appointed to the International Advisory Council of the Asian Disaster Preparedness Centre in Thailand. Before entering national politics, Honorable Mahinda Samarasinghe served as a member and chief opposition whip as well as leader of the House of the Provincial Assembly of Western Provincial Council. In the national legislature, where he served as a member of parliament since 1994, he has functioned in many different capacities such as chief opposition as well as government whip and member and chairperson of numerous consultative committees. He has also served as the Minister of Disaster Management and Human Rights from year 2006 to 2010 and as Minister of Employment and Labour from 2001 to 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, with that background and experience, I am sure he is in an enlightened position to talk about reconciliation. Let me now invite Honorable Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe to share his views on reconciliation. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much for that introduction. Secretary Defense, Secretary Defense of Pakistan, and the Army Commander, distinguished foreign delegates, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for the opportunity given to address this gathering of key policy makers and military leaders. I congratulate the Sri Lankan Army for this, the second consecutive occasion on which they have organized a gathering of this nature to share experiences in defeating terrorism and dealing with its aftermath. I believe this sort of dialogue would evolve into a best practice over time. I welcome the over 120 delegates from 60 countries that have joined us on this occasion to share expertise in an area of critical importance to national and international peace and security. Although I was unable to join you last year when I was invited to deliver the banquet address due to my representing the country overseas, I welcome this opportunity to engage with you on a subject of signal importance to us all. It gives me great pleasure to share with you some thoughts on the theme of reconciliation. This is a subject which is of critical importance for Sri Lanka at the present juncture. It is one of the 5 limbs that form the thematic basis for discussion at this gathering. In this context, the last 9 months have seen significant events that are critical to the success of the post-armed conflict recovery and peace-building initiatives that we are engaged in. In December 2011, 2 documents were made public. Firstly, the National Action Plan for the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights, which was in the making since 2008. This was endorsed by the Cabinet for implementation. Also in December, the report of the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission was tabled in Parliament on the 16th of that month, December. The government's position on the report was made known to the people through the Supreme Legislature of Sri Lanka. These 2 documents form important components of the national reconciliation effort. Human rights is an important ancillary to rebuilding peace in a country that has been beset by the forces of terrorism for nearly 3 decades. In January, the national trilingual policy was adopted in Sri Lanka. Language has proved a sometimes intractable issue in ensuring unity and cohesion. This is a challenge that all multicultural states face. Sri Lanka is a multicultural, multilingual, multi-ethnic society. The ability of disparate linguistic backgrounds to communicate with each other freely, either in their own language or through a common link language, is a sine qua non for guaranteeing mutual trust among communities. Since 1987, although we have accorded equal official status to Sinhala and Tamil and have recognized English as a link language, our success in implementing the provisions of the law have been somewhat limited. An overarching policy that will bring people together through guaranteeing their language rights has been a lack which has now been addressed. In March 2012, Sri Lanka was faced with an unnecessary and unjustified challenge in the UN Human Rights Council, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware about. A resolution was tabled which in effect asked us to do what we were already in the process of doing. As has been our custom since the inception, we had regularly briefed the Council and had discussions with regional and cross-regional groupings represented at that body periodically on the Sri Lankan situation. We had hosted special side events at which our progress was presented and discussed. Incidentally, I have been attending these meetings for the past 6 years. Not once, but several times a year. We were open and transparent about our successes and also about the challenges we faced. Hence, the resolution was, in our opinion, ill-timed, unwarranted, and violative of the founding principles of the Human Rights Council. We categorically rejected the resolution on a matter of principle. We pointed out the negative outcomes of the adoption of the resolution, but notwithstanding our rejection, reiterated our commitment to achieving lasting peace, stability, and prosperity for our people. Effective reconciliation is the cornerstone of that policy. During the interim, significant advances have already been made with regard to many of the recommendations in the report, commencing with these interim recommendations in September 2010. Action was initiated even before a formalized plan to implement them had been devised. We will continue to address these issues in a systematic manner. Some of the areas in which progress has been made include the rapid and sustainable resettlement of IDPs, demining, rehabilitation of ex-combatants, implementation of the language policy, the recruitment of Tamil-speaking police officers, the removal of the military from assisting in civil administration in the north, making available land previously used for security purposes for resettlement return, and carrying out a comprehensive census in the northern province. A national census has also just been completed, and we are in the process of doing ground verification of the information collected, which data is being further analyzed. This is further evidence of the commitment of the government of Sri Lanka towards accounting for the population in the conflict-affected areas during the humanitarian operation. It is our belief that through this process, the highly exaggerated claim of tens of thousands of civilian casualties can be proved to be fully without any foundation. The Cabinet of Ministers in May 2012 decided that a task force headed by the Secretary to the President would monitor the implementation of the recommendations of the Lessons Learned Reconciliation Commission. The LLRC recommendations were duly considered, and a matrix in the form of an action plan was devised by the most senior public officials serving the government. This plan was submitted to the Cabinet in July by His Excellency the President, and the National Executive endorsed this plan with a time-bound framework for implementation. For the purpose of this occasion, I do not propose to detail all the measures that find a place in the action plan matrix. It is a publicly available document, and anyone interested in further detail is welcome to study it at leisure. What is, however, important to note is that the LLRC's sittings and the preparation of the National Human Rights Action Plan coincided, and significant synergies were established between the parallel processes. By the time the National Human Rights Action Plan content was initially approved by Cabinet in September 2011 and its implementation approved in December, several of the important issues had been discussed and measures agreed upon. Hence, it is not feasible to view these processes in isolation, but rather it is best to view them as different contributions to a collective national effort at post-conflict recovery, peace, and stability. It is important to realize that all this happened against the backdrop of the speedy implementation of the other four limbs. We're talking about reconciliation. There are other four limbs that make up the 5 limbs. Reconstruction, resettlement, rehabilitation, reintegration by the government, aided by its partners. Our efforts, which I have already alluded to, are truly remarkable. Demining and resettlement, followed by restoration of economic and administrative infrastructure, has been achieved on par with the best efforts anywhere. Rehabilitation and reintegration of ex-combatants through a speedy and effective process was also key to success. By providing them, especially the 594 child combatants, education, training, and choices for new livelihoods, they are made active partners in the development process progressing apace in their communities. Our gains in these areas have been adequately dealt with by the Secretary of Defense and other speakers, and I do not want to go over the statistics, despite them being a source of justifiable pride to us. What is important to underline in the context of reconciliation is that reconciliation cannot take place in a vacuum. The people of the North, and also to some degree the people in the East, were deprived of the benefits of national development for 30 years due to the presence of LTT in those areas. It is less than useful to talk of reconciliation if the areas continue to lack physical infrastructure and are underserved by the government. Of course, throughout the conflict, government funded health, education and schools, even in areas unlawfully occupied by the LTT. The government also maintained administrative institutions at its expense. This is during the conflict. I don't think there are many examples of that kind of commitment anywhere in the world. What was deemed necessary after the conflict was over was the speedy restoration of the conflict-affected areas to a situation of normality, better than any experience previously by the people of those areas. Our aim is to achieve balanced development across the board that will mean that no urban or rural areas will have greater facilities than the others. This is the essence of the Mahinda Chintana program. This will lead to less resentment. This ideal of balanced regional development is important for us in the South as well as for those of us in the North and the East. We must recall that Sri Lanka in the past 40 years or so has faced 2 youth insurrections in the South as well as terrorism in the North and the East. So all in all, our commitment to economic development initiatives, roads, bridges, railways, ports and harbors, airports, livelihood opportunities, and initiatives such as development zones in Sampur and Achuvili will all sustain peace, harmony and prosperity. I also wish to point out that there appears to be a basic disconnect in thinking as to what is the core of our reconciliation efforts. At the heart are the core conceptions of restorative and retributive justice, which appear to color our perceptions and those of our interlocutors. In the warrant establishing the LLRC, His Excellency the President noted, and I quote, "An opportune moment has arrived to reflect on the conflict phase and the sufferings that the country has gone through as a whole during this period." He also noted, and I quote again, that a need has arisen to learn from this recent history lessons that would ensure that there will be no recurrence of any internecine conflict in the future, and that people are assured of an era of peace, harmony and prosperity, unquote. This was the golden thread that ran through the deliberations of the LLRC. Recovery and non-repetition are the core of this approach. Restitution, compensation and healing are ancillary principles that apply. It is uniquely Sri Lankan approach to a uniquely Sri Lankan situation. As Archbishop Desmond Tutu states, and I quote, "As our experience in South Africa has taught us, each society must discover its own route to reconciliation. Reconciliation cannot be imposed from outside, nor can someone else's map get us to our destination. It must be our own solution. This involves a very long and painful journey, addressing the pain and suffering of the victims, understanding the motivations of the offenders, bringing together estranged communities, trying to find a path to justice, truth, and ultimately peace. Faced with each new instance of violent conflict, new solutions must be devised that are appropriate to the particular context, history, and culture in question," unquote. This is not someone in Sri Lanka saying this. It is none other than Bishop Desmond Tutu, who played a very active role in the peace process in South Africa many years ago. All the experts agree that there is no cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all solution. Sri Lanka must learn as it goes along and evolve solutions by itself. Of course, we look to other countries and regions for ideas. The approaches adopted in Rwanda with regard to poverty eradication and development